Welcome, everybody, to the Baseball Blueprint Podcast, your home for all things player development. We are here today with Denison University head coach Mike Deegan. Coach Deegan, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Appreciate you having me on, Cody. It's always good to sit down and have a conversation with you.
Well, all right, Mike. So, one of the things we like to do on this podcast is kind of lead into this thing by giving us a little bit of your background and maybe a summarized version of your route to Denison. Can you give us a little bit of that journey?
Yeah, just I started off in sales at Coca Cola. I've told that story a couple times over the years, but then I stumbled my way into an assistant coaching position at Marietta, and was there for 9 years, and then was able to transition over here to be the head coach now at Denison. I think I'm entering my 13th year. So yeah, along the way, some summer ball coaching, just different opportunities throughout. But yeah, the direct path was Coke to Marietta as an assistant, then the head coach here.
That's awesome. When you made that move to Marietta, who was the head guy at that time?
It was Coach Brewer, so it was Brian Brewer, who's the head coach there now. He's probably on to his 20th something year. I played for Coach Alley, the longtime legend who was there for 40 years, the all-time winningest coach in Division III history, and the person who really did a lot for NCAA baseball in general. Was one of the first people on the rules committees, and so you talk about a great apprenticeship playing there. And then in my first year when I coached with Coach Brew, Coach Alley was still alive and was around and helping out. So I feel very fortunate to have that time with him and Coach Brewer.
That's awesome. And you've been super involved with the ABCA and working in the D3 committees and stuff like that. Has that experience given you a different viewpoint on how you approach even like understanding regional rankings and understanding the process when it comes to postseason play?
Yeah, that's a really thoughtful question. Absolutely, I think there were some times when we were getting a little bit better here at Denison where we were left out, and I think because of my time at Marietta, you have an idea of the system, like you knew, because year in and year out you're playing in national tournaments and regional tournaments, so I had an idea, but I feel like we got left out a few times. Like 2017 was one of them where I thought we had a resume that was close. So I think when you have those experiences, you can get frustrated, or you can try to learn. And I did get myself way more involved on committees and just hear how the processes work. It's not you're not trying to game the system, but you're trying to learn how to put your team in the best position to be thought of for those rankings and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. I think I got very intentional about trying to be more involved so I could learn and then ultimately help our players and our coaches achieve the goals that we're trying to shoot for.
That's awesome. Wow. And the way you're speaking, the way we have a relationship that goes back to when I was a player. So I've always enjoyed hearing you talk and the way you communicate with your players. Are there some coaching minds that you've kind of pulled from that really have helped sculpted that identity?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hit on a few of the people, Coach Brew, Coach Shalley. I think probably what Cody would I would say when you ask that question, I'll go on a little bit of a rant or a little off topic, but we hear so much now about how we're worried about kids when they specialize because they just play one sport, multiple sport
Mhm.
athletes, all that. One of the downstream effects of that I'm concerned with is the coaching profession, because when you ask that question, like I think back to my youth football coach, and I can still Carl Trussler. I can still we ran T dive right, I right, 22 left. I can still tell the plays because he was there for seven. You're through your youth, so I had him for 7 years, and you run these same plays over and over and over. So what do you learn? You learn fundamentals, blocking and tackling, which in baseball is kind of the same thing, right? It's like you're learning how to do some of the things that we know are tried and true over the years that help you win baseball games. So my youth football coach, my high school basketball coach, Tom Drakely, was the first person that really showed me deep organization and how to create good environments where people can thrive. And then as you kind of build out and keep going, I mean, my life changed when I went and watched Vanderbilt practice in 2006 or seven. And now everyone knows Coach Corbin, and you almost can't hear a podcast without him being mentioned. But that just shows you how deep his tentacles go. But that's where I first went, oh my gosh, like and I was at Marietta, which we were winning national championships, but that like changed the way that I viewed how I would go about running a practice. But I think what I've heard from one of my great mentors right now is that you've got to figure out who you are in this journey, And the only way to really do that is to get to work. And by for me, that's writing, that's reading, and now at this point in my career is trying to have as many conversations as I can with really wise people. Because what can happen, this is what you see a lot of times. You see people that try to morph into the coaches that they played for, which can be a really good thing, by the way, in some people's minds. But even in my situation where I had great mentors, like that wasn't me. I am not Brian Brewer. I am not Don Shalley. I'm not Tim Corbin. So you've got to do the work to figure out who you are as a leader. And all those people have shaped me in some way, shape, or form. And I continue to learn and grow on this leadership journey.
And as a younger coach, do you think that maybe the self awareness of your coaching voice came more with experience and reps, or is that like a thing where the confidence came from you understanding a little bit deeper about how things operated at higher levels?
For me, I think it is creating that self awareness. If if you've got to figure out your values, what you believe in as a person, and getting the understanding then of how that can translate and scale to a team or a program or a major an organization. But yeah, I think being around, some of the rooms that I've been able to be in now, like I get to see some of the best leaders in the world, and of course you're influenced by that. But you use the word. It starts with the awareness first of yourself, and then you can get some awareness of how others perceive you, and then you can really start doing some work. But I think most of us fall on we just default to yeah, we default to however we were taught or whatever we hear on a podcast, and we don't do the hard work, which I believe is necessary to find that voice that you referenced.
Sure, sure. And then you mentioned writing, and you're a well known author by this point, and especially anyone in the baseball community has understood and taken a look at Let Us Rip for sure. How has that impacted yourself when it comes to self reflection?
Yeah, I mean, writing's how I flush my thoughts out.
Okay,
It gives me clarity. Like that's how I use it. And I would challenge anyone, even if you're not a great writer, and I'm by far a great writer, by the way. It's reps, just like anything else. Um, so I think when you do that, it's a forcing function to make you think of like, do I really believe what I'm saying, or do I kind of think it? So I would challenge anyone, whatever your deepest held belief is in the game or whatever, like try to articulate it through writing and see what comes out on the other end of that. Because sometimes we think we know things, like we think we know that, yeah, like no doubles defense is what you want to play in the ninth inning, but then when you go, okay, describe to me what no doubles defense is, and then you have to sit there and try to like actually formulate those thoughts. It's much more challenging than you think. So that's how I flesh things out. That's how I flesh things out. And then when 2015 or whatever, when I started sharing things, what's amazing then is when you hit send and you put something out there, then somehow like this, it goes into the universe and you attract people who are attracted to similar things, and then they challenge you on ideas, or they at least make you refine your thinking as well. So that feedback loop of, yeah, I have something in my mind. Now I need to write it down. Now I'll share it. Now people will give me feedback. Now I've got to go back and try to recalibrate and see if I still feel that way. To me, that's how you get a ton of clarity into what you're trying to accomplish.
that's awesome. And one of the things we've talked about previously on the podcast is maybe some technique notes, or some personal convictions that coaches have altered along their journey. Are there some points there that you can kind of address for us on the show here?
Yeah, I can't say exactly that. I mean, I will say we've become extremely data driven. Like we have a system now that we try to use to objectively measure our defense, let's say. And if you look, I mean, we have the spreadsheet, we have all the ball data of just about everything you can think of. But for a small college, for the resources we have, I think we're pretty much tapping out what we can do with technology. But if you look back, I think one of my assistant coaches showed me a tweet of mine from like, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, where I was like, all this stuff is great, but ultimately it's about scoring runs. So I don't really care about this. So, anyways, they'll fast forward to where we are now, right? Like where after every scrimmage, every at bat is calculated, from the swing decision to the how hard the ball was hit, to where it was located, to the shape of the pitch. Anyways, so like that's a major shift. But what I will say, like, so you can look back and go, man, like that was hypocritical or you didn't know. But I still believe what I wrote 10 years ago as well. I still believe that we're still just trying to score one more run than our opponent. None of this matters because eventually we're just trying to win games. But if we can use it to help develop our guys quicker, then it's a good thing. So, yeah, I mean that would be an example of, yeah, I would say, hey, like none of this matters. Let's just try to learn how to compete hard. But now to where we are today, but our program has also changed too. Like I think some of the DNA, the things that are required to play baseball in a competitive environment have been figured out. Like you have to be tough, you have to be competitive, you have to be all those things. Now we can fine tune a little bit, and data and tech definitely helps shape those thoughts.
That's awesome, Mike. Wow. Okay. So diving into that space too, when you talk about culture building, you took over a Denison program that was competitive, but it wasn't like a regional powerhouse yet. And you guys have put yourselves in a position now where when you see Denison on a schedule and you're a local high school player, they want to come to that game.
Hmm.
What has that process been like for you as a coach who, coming from Marietta, had so much success, had national championship experience? What was that transition like?
Yeah, one of the things I had to do is I had to forget about the Marietta experience because the Denison experience and the Marietta experience are going to be completely different.
Mhm.
And it took me a couple years to learn that. Like I think that's one of the things that I think coaches who are a part of great programs and then they leave and they go somewhere else that maybe isn't as successful. They, you could look at like the Patriot, like the Bill Belichick coaching tree. It's not the best, right? As and when they go on to be head coaches, and some of that is because you're trying to emulate what you learned at another place, and that's not always the best way to go about it. So I had to forget some things, and I would say for us, a lot of this was just it's probably like I don't know. I think probably when you look back at my career, I don't splash. It's just like I'm a plotter. Like we've gotten better consistently for the last 13 years. Like it's our curve has kind of been it hasn't gone with a big spike, and so I think you could probably do things faster than we did, but we did it very organically just by trying to, like you just mentioned, trying to attract a great culture, which starts with great people, by doing the right things, by not trying to, by playing the long game over the short game. And I think, and I'll have to reflect probably at the end of my career and go, man, can we have done this a little bit sooner? Probably, but I don't know if we could have sustained the success that we have without having that infrastructure first, which is creating a great culture.
That's awesome. Wow. And it's so funny. You guys being based in Granville, I grew up very, very near to the campus and getting to see that gradual, like you said, this gradual shift of, okay, this team's really becoming really, really good. And then as I'm playing, to continue to watch you guys have sustained success is really powerful because I remember some of the players you had recruited. You know, just as a player in that process, you start to self evaluate and kind of compare. Not the healthiest thing to do, but that's what happened.
Yeah, sure.
And I start to understand, like notice, like, oh, these kids can ball. This is a guy who I feel like is really really good, a super good competitor. And traditionally, for me at that point in my career, I didn't have the college experience I have now. I felt very confused. I said, "Why is this
Yeah,
kid going here?" And then you start to witness the culture, and you start to witness the coaching staff, and really the university itself as well. And there's power behind that. I mean, from a self development standpoint, it's about who you're surrounded with and the environment you can be in. And that was awesome for me after I played to start to recognize as a young coach, creating that environment is super powerful. That's something that's
yeah,
it's a necessity to be able to build and sustain that culture. So, congrats to you on that. And I know for me, that's something that I want to strive to continue to produce wherever I end up. And one of the things that I was wanting to pick your brain about as well was, are there some like common problem areas that you see when you have some freshmen come on campus and have those problem areas maybe shifted more now that social media is a little bit heavier of a thing?
yeah. I don't. Th- I haven't reflected on the differences that much. I can't speak to. My knee jerk reaction to that question is like usually the biggest difference is just a physicality piece,
Yeah.
like just strength, like right, just functional strength. That's usually the bigger separator, kind of what you'll see from a 22-year-old to an 18-year-old. If the 22-year-old has worked hard and has been on a path, that's usually the first thing that jumps. But I would say like the deeper answer to me would be just a lack of understanding of what it takes to win college baseball games. and our game has shifted so much, and I sound like I'm shouting at the clouds here, but to me I'm not. It's just the reality. Like it used to be baseball used to be a much more of a community based sport. You play for your high school, you play for your local legion, or some, and I grew up in Washington, Pennsylvania, and family in the Ohio Valley. And if you played in the Ohio Valley Legion and your legion was struggling, like the old men sitting around watching the game were on you, right? Like it mattered. Like the winning part of the game mattered. Now it's become very much individual based, and you see, pitchers throwing 2, 3 inning outings. Everything is about their arm care and the development of the player. And I even as I'm saying that, I don't like the way I sound, because I'm sounding like cynical, and maybe part of me, maybe part of it is, but I think when they get to college, they realize like a lot of that doesn't matter now. Now it's about, can you help, in our case, Denison University win baseball games, and how can you become a small piece of that machine, and
Yeah.
that's really tough for people, because for the last however many years, the baseball has really revolved around them, and now you're part of something much bigger than yourself. For certain kids, they jump right in, they thrive, and they actually get better in that environment. For others, there's this learning curve of like, I'm not that important. And I hate to say that, but it's like it's a weird, but I knew I wasn't that important, when I was 14 years old, whenever we were losing, because I knew I was just a part of a team. Now you're just a part of a team. And so that's probably the biggest adjustment I see, is that like and what you think is successful isn't necessarily accurate either. Like you may go 2 for 3 and feel like you did great that day, but you hit two balls at 72 miles an hour that blooped over the second baseman's head. You're not a great runner, so you can't get to second base. Like you're not a good defender, but you go home and tell your parents that I went 2 for 3. And, so anyways, there's probably like a misconception of what success really looks like at this level. And that's what I would say.
Gotcha. Yeah. Wow. That's good stuff, man. And so, Mike, when you're evaluating a potential player for Dennis, and you're out recruiting, and you're looking at these guys, what are some non-physical traits that you can see that lead you to believe like this guy understands what it means to be a winner?
Yeah, I think you're always looking for, and Ryan Romick and Danny LaPera, our two assistants, do so much of the hard work in that space, so that they're probably more qualified to speak on it. But I think just people who they look like they love to play the game. I think that's something. And what does that look like? It just looks like someone who gets on the field quickly. It looks like someone who's engaging with their teammates. It looks like someone who's smiling at appropriate times, who's frustrated at appropriate times, by the way, because I think that's kind of become a negative thing. But if I see a guy chuck a helmet in an appropriate way, it's not the worst thing in the world to me. It's not a behavior that I would hope would be repeatable, but it's just a passion sometimes that's misguided at 16 or 17. But I think when you see those things, that they love this idea of the process of getting better. And that's why for most of the recruiting we do, we rely so heavily on people we trust, because I always feel like if they love the process of getting better, if they love that process, and they love the process of being a part of something bigger than themselves, and they're going to have a really good shot here of finding success and fulfillment. Because we're going to coach hard, we're going to coach like just we love this. It's mid October, and I'm getting sad about the end of our fall season because it's about to end. But our guys have to match that, because we're going to keep showing up with a detailed practice plan, with a way to improve for a team and as an individual. And if you can't keep up with that love, like it's gonna eat you up. And if it's all about you, it's that's not going to work here either. And we're really lucky. I mean, we had the National Player of the Year last year, Eric Colasso, and you have to work hard to ever get him to say anything about himself. Like we just heard, we had a prospect camp, and this kid said, he was talking to someone on one of our players, and the kid walked away, and he's talking to another guy, and he goes, "Hey, who was the National Player of the Year?" And he goes, "It was that guy you were just talking to for 15 minutes." Like he has no idea. So my point is, if you love to get better and you don't care a whole lot about yourself, like you got a shot here. So we're always looking for like those things, but we're usually going to get that a lot from some of the great people that have coached them, that can give us that feedback.
That's awesome. Wow. Okay. Okay. That's good. That's good stuff for any of you prospective student athletes. That's something that I'm willing to bet. 99% of college coaches are looking for as well. So that's really really awesome. Uh, Mike, let's dive into this here. Throughout your coaching journey, you've talked about some of the people who have made an impact on your processes and your beliefs. Can you give us maybe three lessons that you've learned that you would like to share with some maybe younger coaches or guys getting ready to start that journey?
Um, and I've never thought about this, so this is truly off the rip. I'd say one, keep yourself in great shape. Let's be a practitioner as long as you possibly can. If you're going to be a hitting coach, there's no rule that says that you can't keep hitting. Like I think that's it's like a black belt in the in a dojo. Like they keep practicing their trade. Now, eventually, they get older and younger, more skilled people can beat them, but they still are practicing. They're learning. And I think so many coaches, once they become a coach, they shut that off. They shut the physical part of it off. So I would still be a practitioner. Like I said, the second part of that would be I would keep myself in as good a shape as you possibly can. Why do I say that? One, just health benefits. I think you're a more sharp, more alert person when you're in that space. But two, if you're like me, a plotter, like I feel like my best work is going to be 10, 20 years from now. And I'm in my 40s now. So if I'm going to make the impact in this game on people like I want to, then I've got to keep myself around. So keep working on yourself physically. And then I would say the third thing is kind of how I guess maybe this is how I got moving in the right direction. It is having the willingness to create content, to share the content, and try to have as many conversations with elite people that you possibly can. And by elite, that doesn't mean presidents and CEOs. Like sometimes you may stumble into that one, but it could be anybody who's doing things at a really high level. It's the custodian who I just marvel out here at Denison, who always does it with a smile, where everything's spotless. Like I want to learn from her because she's doing something. She's got something in there that's different. So I'm always looking for people who are thriving in their roles and trying to get close to them. So if I'm a coach, I'm doing the same thing because there's learning opportunities everywhere. So first two are physical. Be a master at your craft. Like keep learning, keep practicing. Two, keep yourself in great shape. And three, I would say, yeah, get around wise people and fight for that.
I love it. I love it. And so, as a younger coach, did you find that a little bit more nerve wracking, making that move to initiate communication with some higher level individuals?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think we all have that in some way. But for me, it's like what's higher level. I like and now I think I'm at a different position. So that question is extremely fair. But maybe it's like 10 years ago, me would have a different answer. But I've been around people that are at high levels that I wouldn't want to spend 2 more minutes with. I'm like they don't do it for me. And I've spent time with people at what would be quote unquote low levels that I can't get enough of. So I've really learned that people are just people. And once you have going back to your original thoughtful question, once you have an awareness of like what you're attracted to values wise, like that's who I'm trying to lean into and try to create like genuine, authentic relationships. That the one I hate giving advice, but the one thing I would say is that when you're going into those spaces, like one, I always look what I can give as well. And there's not a lot that I can give sometimes. Maybe that's monetary, or maybe that's yeah. But there's something that leader can learn from me. I don't care who they are. So I'm always trying to figure out how I can add value to them. It's always if I can always come away going like I've contributed to their learning and growth, I feel better about it. And then I would say like I expect nothing. Like I don't want anything from them because I feel like people in higher positions, everyone's pulling at them for something. And so I don't want to be that way. I just want to try to enjoy them as people and then build a relationship. Like the word networking is a little bit off putting to me because it's not, and I know that's not what people are thinking about, but I never want to network. I just want to build really good relationships where we can learn and grow together.
That's awesome. Wow. And so I'll end with this question because I want to know a little bit more about how this impacts your coaching lifestyle. But you're an incredible husband. You're an incredible father. How has the arrival of your kids impacted how you instruct and teach?
Well, thank you for saying that, and and I don't always feel that way, by the way. So thank you, and I want to be clear. There's, my wife and I, we struggle in marriage, and we fight with kids. We have our issues there too. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, that this is a tough journey. When we have 4 kids, we're in a fight day to day to try to keep our happiness and our fulfillment together. So it's always a challenging. But how has it impacted my coaching? One, I think I look at every kid we have through the lens of how would I want my kids to be treated, and that's maybe not even accurate, but that's how I view it. And so, like for me, like I just want my kids to be in really good environments where they have a chance, where they have an opportunity to thrive. Like they have an opportunity. Like that's the only thing that I feel like I can never ask of any coach, any teacher, anybody. Can they have can they fight for an opportunity to have a chance? And then from there, I'm out. Like as long as I feel like they're around good people, and I think every youth coach, and I don't think this is, ask any youth coach of my kids, like they don't hear anything from me, because as long as only time I'll ever intervene is if I feel like something's off, in a really really negative way. But for the most part, that's how I want to treat our kids. So I want them to have the opportunity, and I want to provide that. And there's just the hard and the good lessons that come from that. By the way, like that means you may never play an inning for Denison baseball. That may be the case, but you're going to learn a lot in a healthy, good environment. So, but I think to answer your question, having kids is a life changer. I think in the way that you view other people's children, for sure.
That's awesome. Wow. Well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a great episode. I've learned a ton. I always do when I speak to you. So I thank you for joining us. Special thank you to the Baseball Blue Book Network for partnering with the show. Thank you to Valley Sporting Goods for being a sponsor. And again, thank you to Mike. Mike, this has been a blast.
No, I really appreciate you guys. Very thoughtful questions, and I really appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to reflect and share, because it made me better as well. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, thank you to the listeners, and we'll see you next time.
Good to go.